Hey everyone, welcome back to Easy Vet Anatomy. Myself Dr.K.P. Sharon. In today's video, I'm going to explain about the phalanges of ox species. So if we say the phalanges of ox species, each digit it is having three phalanges, first phalange, second phalange and the third phalange. In case of ox species, the functional digit that is it is formed by the fusion of third and fourth metacarpal. So each metacarpal, if you remember the distal extremity of the metacarpal, it is having a sagittal cleft dividing into two condyles in the distal extremity. So each condyle again it is having the axial and the abaxial sides divided by a sagittal ridge. So to each of this condyle, the first phalanges of both the digits they articulate and they form a joint called as fetlock joint. And the joint formed between the first and the second phalanx is called as Paschen joint. The joint formed between the second and the third phalanx is called as coffin joint. If you appreciate the distal olar part of these phalanges, you can appreciate a small bones called as sesamoids. So these sesamoids they actually do not bear the weight of the body, but they just act as levers. Okay, so they are present on the olar surface of these phalanges. There are two types of sesamoids: proximal sesamoids and distal sesamoid. Proximal sesamoids they are present between the distal extremity of the large metacarpal and also the first phalanx, whereas the second distal sesamoids they are located between the distal extremity of the second phalanx and the proximal extremity of the third phalanx. First phalanx of ox species, it is also called as os suffraginus. So it is a long bone which is placed between metacarpal above and the second phalanx below. So it forms fetlock joint with the metacarpal and Paschen joint with the proximal extremity of the second phalanx. As it is a long bone, it is having a shaft. So this part is the shaft and it has two extremities. This is proximal extremity and this is distal extremity. So if you observe the shaft, it is four-sided. So shaft is four-sided, and coming to extremities, proximal extremity is somewhat larger than the distal one. This is distal extremity, this is proximal extremity. Shaft it is having four surfaces or the four faces. So this face is the dorsal face and this face is the axial face. Axial face is nothing but the side of the bone which is present towards the other digit. So this is first phalanx of one digit. As the in the ox species, you can appreciate there are two metacarpals, that is functional metacarpal number 3 and 4. They are fused to form a single metacarpal. If you remember the distal extremity of the metacarpal, it is divided by a sagittal cleft into two condyles, again which is having an abaxial and the axial facet. So in each condyle, so this first phalanx they articulate and they form the fetlock joint. So this will be axial side and this is abaxial side, this is dorsal side and this is olar side. So if you see the dorsal face or the dorsal surface, it is convex in shape. So it is convex in shape and it is continuous with the abaxial face. Axial means it is towards the midline, abaxial means it is away from the midline. Okay. And coming to the axial surface, this is somewhat flat. And coming to the olar surface, so olar surface is having two tubercles, small tubercles here. So these tubercles are for the ligamentous attachment. And coming to the extremities, this is proximal extremity. As you can see, it is having two articular surfaces divided by a sagittal groove. So this will be axial and this will be abaxial. So if you see the height of this articular surface, the abaxial abaxial facet is somewhat larger and it is located higher than the axial one. So this is similar to the condyles present in the distal extremity of the metacarpal. If you talk about the olar side here, so it is having two facets for the proximal sesamoids. Proximal sesamoids, it just articulate between the distal extremity of the metacarpal with this proximal extremity of the first phalanx, especially these two facets, small facets. Okay, and these tubercles, therefore, the ligamentous attachment. This is about the proximal extremity. Coming to the distal extremity, so here you can appreciate the distal extremity is somewhat smaller than the proximal extremity, and it is divided by a sagittal groove into two condyles. So in which the axial will be smaller and the abaxial will be larger. So this articulates with the proximal extremity of the second phalanx. Coming to the second phalanx, so this is the second phalanx. It is also a long bone which is placed obliquely downwards and forwards between the first phalanx and the third phalanx. So the distal half of each, it is included within the hoof. So that means this part of the second phalanx, it is included in the hoof along with the third phalanx. So if you see here, the shaft is three-sided. So this is the shaft and it has two extremities. This will be proximal and this is distal. So the shaft is three-sided. It is having a ular face. This is abaxial face and this is axial face. This extremity is the proximal extremity and this is distal extremity. So if you appreciate the proximal extremity, it is having two glenoid cavities divided by a sagittal ridge. So in this, the abaxial will be larger and this is the axial, just to fit into the condyles of the first phalanx. And if you appreciate on the ular face, so the ular face, it is having two tubercles which are for the attachment of tendon of superficial digital flexor. And coming to the distal extremity, it is having two condyles divided by a sagittal groove, so in which the abaxial one will be larger. So this is to fit into the proximal extremity of the third phalanx. And the ular surface, especially in the distal part, it has an articular area or the facet for articulation with the distal sesamoid. Distal sesamoid is located between the second phalanx and the third phalanx, whereas the proximal sesamoid is located between the distal part of metacarpal and also the proximal extremity of the first phalanx. Third phalanx, it is also called as os pedis. So this is a short bone and this third phalanx, it is entirely enclosed inside the hoof along with the distal half of the second phalanx. So this is a short bone having four surfaces, two borders and an angle. Okay, so whatever the surface you're seeing here, this side, so this surface is laminar surface. This surface is interdigitating surface. Okay, so this is interdigitating surface. This is laminar surface. So this surface is the superior surface. And this flat surface is called as solar surface, or you can also call it as the ular surface. First, coming to the superior surface. So this superior surface, this part, it is articular. So and it presents two facets for the distal extremity of the second phalanx. And also it has a small facet here for the articulation for the distal sesamoid. Okay, so it is present just along the ular border. And coming to the inferior face or the solar face. So this is flat. If you see, it is wide in the middle and it is narrow in front. So this is having a contact with the sensitive sole in life. And coming to the interdigitating surface. So this surface is interdigitating. So you can appreciate there are foramens and you can make out a groove here. Okay. So this interdigitating surface, it is having groove below and it is porous and rough above, especially near to the extensor process. So this we'll call it as extensor process. So the process which is present along the dorsal border of the third phalanx, this process is the extensor process. Near the extensor process, you can appreciate one large foramen. It is present on the interdigitating surface. So coming to this extensor process is for the attachment of the tendon of common digital extensor. And coming to this laminar surface, so this laminar surface, it slopes from above downwards and it becomes steep posteriorly. and distally it is traversed by a groove. So this groove is called as periplantar groove, and it contains so many foramens. So these foramens are just for the passage of the blood vessels and the nerves which supply to the hoof. Okay, and extreme posterior angle of this laminar surface, it is having a structure called as angle of the third phalanx. So this part we'll call it as an angle. Coming to the borders, so this border is called as dorsal border, and this border is called as ular border. So at the middle of the dorsal border, so you can appreciate a process called as extensor process, which is for the attachment of tendon of common digital extensor. And this is the ular border, which is very thick, and it is for the attachment of deep digital flexor of the digit.
This video helped you. Please do follow, like, share and subscribe to Easy Vet Anatomy. Thank you.